The APC-Nemasket Digital Watershed Tour, Chapter 6, Floodplains and Wetlands.
Communities with close ties to local water bodies, like we have here around the Assawompset Ponds Complex and the Nemasket River, are often faced with a big challenge. We love the water, but at the same time, we have to manage dangerous flooding caused by storms. One way for our communities to minimize damage from flooding and storm events is to work with, not against, key natural features that regularly take on floodwaters. Two such naturally occurring features, floodplains and wetlands, are already equipped to intercept floodwater. Wetlands and floodplains sometimes, but not always, overlap. Understanding the distinction between them can help to clarify our role in protecting each. A floodplain is an area of land next to a water body that fills up with water whenever the water body overflows its banks. Natural floodplains are an important part of how rivers manage water during periods of high precipitation and increased water flow. Water bodies that get disconnected from their floodplain by natural or man-made changes are cut off from their natural ability to overtop banks during flood events. Man-made changes can include the installation of dams or levees, or dredging the water body bed. So what can we do to preserve the floodplain and maintain the area over which floodwaters need to flow to help keep water speeds and erosion low and people and property out of harm's way?
Hydrologists and other floodwater specialists help us answer this question with flood models. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA for short, has studied water bodies throughout the country to determine the extent of their floodplain area during storms of different magnitudes. The more intense the precipitation, the larger the floodplain area will extend. Structures that are located within a FEMA-designated special flood hazard area are usually required to carry flood insurance policies by mortgage underwriters. While these insurance policies allow individuals to build homes and other structures in riskier flood zones, the best practice would be to avoid building in these floodplain areas altogether.
Some floodplains contain wetlands. Wetlands are areas where water covers the soil or is present either at or near the surface of the soil all year or for varying periods of time during the year. This permanent or semi-permanent saturation of the ground creates the conditions for hydric soils, a hallmark of the presence of wetlands. These soils are also noteworthy because they're very oxygen limited. Not many plants can live in this oxygen-limited soil profile, with the exception of a specially adapted class of plants called hydrophytes. Wetlands are truly exciting landscapes, and they do so many important jobs. First, wetlands like swamps and vernal pools are extraordinarily productive ecosystems, which are home to many beloved species like dragonflies, herons, crayfish, salamanders, and many more. Wetlands are one of the best buffers that our communities have against floodwaters. Wetlands can act like a sponge and absorb floodwaters before they reach our homes, downtowns, and essential facilities. Many wetlands have a mutually beneficial relationship with floodwaters. They provide a floodplain for floodwater, while that floodwater carries and spreads nutrient-rich sediments into the wetlands. Finally, wetlands are champions at fighting climate change. Wetlands strain matter that contains carbon, such as leaves and animal waste, from the water. This natural debris is buried by the water and sediment in the wetlands, locking them away. Wetlands can store 50 times more carbon than rainforests, helping us to keep the heat-trapping gas that contributes to climate change out of the atmosphere. To protect these valuable areas, the first thing you can do is to know how close you are to floodplains and wetlands on your property. FEMA's National Flood Hazard Layer Viewer is an online mapping resource where you can enter your address and see any floodplain areas in proximity. Another great time to take this step is when you are searching for a new home to be informed of floodplain proximity. In looking at these maps, be aware that with climate change increasing the frequency of large storms, areas on the edge of the special flood hazard area may still be impacted by storm events. Similarly,
Wetland maps are available for reference from the state of Massachusetts via their GIS service called Oliver. Searching for wetlands in Oliver's Available Data Layers search box will bring up options for viewing these maps. Once you've located the general area of wetlands in your vicinity, avoid disturbing these sites with materials like yard waste. Instead, embrace wetland areas and pay them a visit. Some parklands provide opportunities for viewing wetlands or for walking on special elevated platforms through wetland areas in a way meant to minimize disturbances. Whenever possible, avoid building in the floodplains and the wetlands. This includes sheds and other smaller structures. Are you ready to take these steps and become an APC and Nemasket River watershed protector? Learn the facts. Protect our watershed. Protect our community.